Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Excited to chat with you all today. We're going to wait a few minutes as people join and get situated. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I think a few folks may continue to join us, and if you haven't already, please complete that poll just so we know who is in our room and who is participating. Would love to start with just a couple of introductions. So my name is Jake Schmitz. I'm the Managing Director of Instructional Supports. I've been with SchoolWorks since 2016, obviously back when I had a little bit more hair than I do now. Prior to my work at SchoolWorks, I was a middle school ELA teacher and principal in Houston and in Kansas City. For those folks that don't know, SchoolWorks is an educational consulting firm based in Massachusetts. We have 5 main areas of service: accountability and authorizer supports, quality reviews, leadership supports, instructional supports, and school developer support. So excited to talk to our friends from Pittsfield today. And I am going to start with Judy. Judy is going to give a quick introduction and also give you some context of Pittsfield Public Schools out in Western Massachusetts. So Judy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. You want to do an introduction and give a quick overview of Pittsfield Public Schools?
Sure. Thank you, Jake. And good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Judy Rush. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for Pittsfield Public Schools. I've been with the district for about 20 years now. Pittsfield is actually a district located in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. We are closer to Albany than we are to Boston, to give you an idea of where we're located. We have 8 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, and we have an elementary and secondary specialized therapeutic program. We have about 5,000 students in the district, and to give you an idea of what they are like, we're about 65.5% of our students are considered economically disadvantaged. And as we speak about our elementary schools, there's also a wide range in our schools. We range from about 46% in one school to 92% in another school. So we have some very diverse schools. We are considered an urban district, but we are actually nestled in the beautiful Berkshire Hills in Western Massachusetts.
It's beautiful, and the drive from the Albany airport to Pittsfield is wonderful, especially in the fall when the leaves are changing, for sure. Thank you, Judy. Victoria, do you want to go next?
Sure. Good afternoon. Good morning to everyone. I'm Victoria Duma. I'm the principal of Capeless Elementary School. I've been with Pittsfield Public Schools since 2009, and through my time here, I've worn many hats. I started as a paraprofessional. I was a PE teacher for a little while. Then I spent many years teaching 1st and 2nd grade, and then I transitioned to being a literacy coach. And now I'm in this role as the principal of Capeless. We're a small school. We're pre-K through 5. We have 190 students. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today because the science of reading has really helped our school and our district. So it's really exciting to be here.
Thank you. Gwen, you want to go next?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm a reading specialist at Egremont Elementary School. I've been here actually for 12 years. The last 3 years, I've been the reading specialist, and prior to that, I was a special education teacher here at Egremont. So I'm so excited for this discussion today.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So connected to our poll question, we've got some participants here who have advanced experience with science of reading. Some are just beginning. Some have none. So kind of across the spectrum. Would love to just start with what is the science of reading and what does it look like at an elementary school?
Absolutely. So I'll jump in there. I'll kind of start us off with that. So the science of reading refers to the research findings from decades of studies that really have a broad range of fields, from developmental psychology to neuroscience. From the research, there's some big key findings that have really kind of elevated to the top that inform us about how students learn how to read, and then the best instructional practices on how to teach kids how to read. It's not a specific program or intervention. It's really a base of knowledge and best practices about how to teach children how to read. I'm sure many of us have heard this over and over, but it really encompasses the big 5 components of teaching reading, which are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And a big chunk of our conversation today is going to be really what that looks like at an elementary level and how to implement it. But one of the things that Pittsfield Public Schools has done is created like an instructional playbook for the essential components of a literacy block that has kind of put itself in as a guide for elementary teachers for their literacy instruction.
Great. Thank you so much. Would love to, next question, would love to talk about like your transition to science of reading. So first talk to us about what literacy instruction looked like in Pittsfield prior to the switch, and then what led to the decision to making the change.
Yeah, so being in the district for many years, when I first started teaching, literacy definitely looked a lot different than it looks now. I remember I was teaching first and second grade, and we did have a 90-minute block for ELA and then a 30-minute writing block, which was separate. And I just remember being hired and told that small group instruction was best, but there wasn't really a guide or a clear script on what that looked like. And so I think it looked very different in everybody's space. And at this point, we were using more of a guided reading approach. So meaning that we had leveled readers with students, and students were really grouped based on just their oral reading fluency. And now we, as you'll hear in a little while, we do use a lot more assessments just to make sure that we're truly meeting students where they are. But prior to that, we were just using leveled text, and students would come to your table and we would teach phonics as it happened in the book, and as students struggled with different words. We used foundations for those of you that are familiar with that, and we were able to work with phonics concepts, but really still focusing on those spelling patterns. Whereas now we take a much more diagnostic approach, and we're much more explicit about what components, as Gwen mentioned, we are including in everybody's literacy block. So it was just a little bit more flexible. And then our 3 through 5 students, most of them came with the ability to read. I think COVID truly impacted a lot of our students in many different ways, especially our 3 through 5 students. So those classrooms were more focused on comprehension skills and grammar. And then as COVID happened, we've now seen such a huge need to shift to teach our 3 through 5 students those foundational skills.
Great. Any other context, just in terms of like what led to the change from what you all used to how you all used to teach reading to now how you're doing it with science of reading and components?
I think if we go back and look at the pathway that kind of got us there, that's where we can see what the changes are, Jake. Yeah, basically, we actually we were recipients of a competitive grant. It was called the GLEAN grant, Growing Literacy Equity Across Massachusetts. And it was a $5,000 planning grant to just take a look at what our next steps were going to be in literacy. So as using that grant, we brought together teams of educators to take a look at what our current state was. So we really looked at our student data, we looked at the programs that we had, and then the group also actually created a survey for staff to see how comfortable staff was in not just teaching comprehension, but also teaching students how to read properly. And we gathered all that information, and this was an absolutely incredible team. And that's when we kind of realized maybe we weren't doing things exactly the right way. And they did a lot of research, and we came up with the conclusion that we really needed to not get another program or another thing, but we actually needed to have some really solid professional development in the science of reading. And as Gwen said, it's been around for 50 years, but we just kind of started to look at all the current research, and our teachers were basically crying out and saying, we need to know what the highest impact, best research-based practices are. So that's kind of how we made the shift.
Yeah.
It looked a little different in each school, but and then what we did was, in order to be able to have this change and have this professional development, was we were able to put literacy coaches in every one of our schools. And we did that through our COVID relief, our ESSER funds. So for the past 3 years, we've had literacy coaches, and these coaches became experts. They've gone to an incredible amount of training We've offered district training, but they've also left the district and gone to training. We wrote a coaching guidebook so that we would have integrity and fidelity to the coaching position. I think that's also a shift from before. There had been coaches in the district before, but their roles were different based on each school. And we made the roles much more consistent and much more student and teacher centered. And then we also put it as part of our district improvement plan. We've had literacy in our plan for the last few years, with the past year actually having an instructional priority beyond just being a piece of our district improvement plan, an instructional priority that all of our students will be able to read and comprehend grade level text. So that's kind of, I don't know if that piggybacks a little bit on yours, Vicki, but kind of how we got to the place where we got to do it differently.
Yeah, I would love to, you talked a little bit about teachers kind of asking for, saying like, this is not, the data's not showing that our students are reading, or they're asking for something else or asking for more. Like, were there any teachers, staff members, leaders that you had to build buy-in with this transition? And if so, how did you go about that for folks that maybe weren't bought into the science of reading? Like, how did you navigate that?
Vicki and Gwen, you're in the schools. You want to jump in on that one a little bit?
Yeah.
I will say that the time frame for kind of when Pittsfield took this all on was when we were kind of emerging from COVID. So we were already in a state of complete change and kind of transition anyway. So I feel that, and it was mentioned earlier that, Vicki had said that in 3rd through 5th grade, those teachers hadn't necessarily ever really had to think about how to teach children how to read. And now post-COVID, there really was more of an awareness of the need for that. So I feel like the time frame of this was almost like perfect in a way of kind of how it came. So we were already in this state of like change is needed. And so we were already kind of shifting. So that was one thing that I saw, but also I personally, myself and Vicki, I know she was on this too, but we started with a very a book study, David Kilpatrick's Equipped for Reading Success. And that, for me, like, I'd been a reading specialist and a special education teacher prior to that. And that was like a shift for me in just how to teach reading, kind of layering so much more of the science of teaching of reading and changing my kind of scope and sequence for how I teach reading. So I feel like the timing was right. We were all kind of ready for change and needed change and saw it. And then there were some things like book studies that kind of started the initial kind of turn towards this new kind of process.
Great. Vicki, anything to add in terms of building buy-in for folks that maybe were initially hesitant or pushed back even more than a little bit? I just would love to hear anything else that, as obviously a principal of a school.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like Gwen said, we really first tried to build capacity for people that were ready to jump in. And then that did sort of have a trickle effect. But with that really was the position of that literacy coach. So the district did adopt this as a focus. And so with that, we provided a lot of professional development. But the thing that really makes professional development stick, obviously, is having those coaches within the building. So not only did you go to a PD on these evidence-based reading practices, but then every week schools were meeting, had schedules that allowed for teachers to work very closely with coaches, whether it be modeling, giving feedback, but on a regular weekly basis, and really continuing this work. And then I think as more teachers started to see their students have success and really increase their reading skills, more teachers started to buy into it. Right. So I think it's that the power of the data really spoke for itself.
Yeah, great. You all have talked a little bit about how important the literacy coaches are. You talked about some assessments, transitioning maybe from other assessments and utilizing different assessments. What systems and structures did you implement? Judy, I'd love to maybe start at the district level. You are obviously already mentioned, your district improvement plan, your literacy coaches. Anything else like at the top that you all did to ensure that science of reading was something that everybody, all schools, all teachers within the districts were utilizing? And then I'll turn it over to Gwen and Vicki about systems and structures at the school level.
Yeah, I think in addition to the literacy coaches, which were huge, we also started having external professional development. So we had experts come into the district, and the first thing we did was have the administrators have the training. So while their training was not as in depth as the classroom teachers, they first had a 2-hour overview from the firm that we were working with to make sure that they understood what this was all about, what the science of reading meant, and what they were kind of buying into. And it's fascinating because after that, we gave the administrators the choice. Do you want to have 4 sessions, kick off the science of reading? So we have 10 half-day professional development days. Do you want to give up 4 of your days to have an external provider come in and support your staff? And every single one of them said yes. Wow. I don't think we have 100% with everything, but that's how important it was to our administrators as well. So we began with having this district PD, and the way it worked was we had grade levels get together. So K and 1 would have PT together, 2 and 3 would have it, 4 and 5 and such. So we really were able to fine tune the PD and start some conversations cross district, which I know the teachers really appreciated. And we also kept rolling out on the district level different types of book studies. We did Natalie Wexler's book as well to learn about background knowledge and the value of that. We created, I'm trying to think, besides the coaching guide, we also have created a reading, like a comprehension blueprint as to what the structure should look like in each building for reading. And another thing we've done with that is there's actually a book by Hennessy that is called the Reading Comprehension Blueprint. And this year, all of our administrators actually not only read the book, but each month they each presented to their colleagues a chapter or 2 from the book. So we started to take the us being the recipients of professional development and grow our capacity to actually provide our own professional development.
Great, thank you. Gwynn, Vicki, on the school level, other structures and systems that you all are implementing that you feel like are having a really positive impact at the school level?
So we, it was mentioned before, but every schedule has a 90-minute literacy block. And within that, we've really worked hard to designate a specific time within that for students to receive, direct instruction and some sort of intervention. So that has really been something that we've kind of over the years have kind of gotten to a point where how important it is to really have a schedule that makes the time and really dedicates it to specific kind of skill instruction with reading. The other thing I would just say is because there has been so much professional development over the years, and we've really kind of like added to our knowledge that there's such a common language now around the science of reading that it's just kind of become a part of kind of our discussions and kind of what we do. And so I feel like that's kind of something that we have in place now, that capacity and that kind of common knowledge and vocabulary that we use just daily, that has really helped also.
Great. Vicki, anything else to add?
Yeah, I just want to echo the importance of, I think all schools have what we call a win block or a what I need block. So we have it in addition to our 90 minutes, where it's 30 minutes a day, students go and they're really put into a group where their instructional level is. And we use a lot of data to place students in these groups. And students are working on either enrichment or intervention, but truly every single student is getting exactly what they need. And that has been a really positive shift in just our students getting what they need in the classroom, their tier 1 instruction, but then also tier 2 or tier 3 intervention if needed.
Great. And you all have talked about this a couple of times, and so I'll just ask specifically about the assessments and the data that you all are collecting. And so if it's helpful to talk about assessments you made or you had kind of pre-science of reading and then the changes, that great. And if not, that's okay as well. But just like what assessments are you utilizing that our teachers are using to put kids in those win blocks, figuring out like what their just right instruction looks like? Just walk us through the assessments and then how often your teachers are looking at that data, et cetera.
Yeah, so at Pittsfield, we have had this amazing kind of program called FastBridge that we've used, which we've had for at least 6 or 7 years, I'd say. So we did, interesting you say, kind of what did you do before and after? We've had that amazing kind of system in place. So it is interesting to kind of see how we've continued to use that, but kind of like upped it almost and really kind of gone in deeper. And then what we've also layered in kind of after all of the science of reading training that we've had. So all students are screened at least 3 times a year on their benchmark assessments, and different pre-K, K, and 1. They have individual measures such as phoneme proficiency, fluency, or letter name fluency. And there's a whole kind of different realm of tests that they're given. But then students in 1st through 5th grade are assessed on their oral reading fluency. And that is something that was done, prior to kind of where we are now and now. But really what has changed that I have seen is that we now have, and Vicki used this word earlier, but diagnostic assessments, that if students are below the 35th percentile in their oral reading fluency, now we have even more kind of knowledge and assessment data to be able to go in and see kind of where the students really are breaking down. Is it their phoneme proficiency? Is it their phonics skills? And kind of give us more information to really diagnose where those difficulties are happening, so that then we can, intervene and make instructional decisions to really, make sure that students are growing. Additionally, in grades 3 through 5, students are also given a standards-based assessment because it's important, where they were still continuing to work on all of the skills, but also that we want to make sure that students are progressing towards their grade level standards as well. And the data, I'm sure Judy and Vicki will also talk a little bit more about kind of how we use this data, but that has also been, something that has been huge over the last couple of years. It's just really making sure we're using all of this amazing data that we do have, and looking at it, from the district level all the way down to the student level, and kind of making those good decisions.
Yeah. Judy, Vicki, anything else to add on with assessments or how data is utilized?
Yeah, we use the, so like Gwen said, we do use the PAST and the QPS to screen our students. In my building, we actually screen all of our students at the beginning of the year just to see, are there breakdowns? Even in our students that appear to be a little bit more fluent, we do often find that they do have some gaps when it comes to decoding multisyllabic words. So it's important to have that information on all of our students. And like I mentioned before, when we used to teach reading, we were using just really that oral reading fluency. So now that we have all of these other data points, we meet every 6 to 8 weeks, and we sit together with myself, our coach, and all of our interventionists, but we also have the teachers at the table, and that's been really powerful. We all sit with the data and we look to see, where is this student breaking down? Is it at the phonological awareness level? Is it at the phonics level? And we compare, and then we put kids strategically in those groups based on their need. And so what that looks like when everybody leaves the meeting, you have a clear guideline of, these are the students that'll be in my next WIN group. These are the exact skills that they need. These are the learning gaps. These are the formative assessments that you'll use in order to measure their progress. And then we also set up progress monitoring for our students through FastBridge. So we assess our students bi-weekly in reading and math to be able to track whether or not the interventions we have in place are working.
Great. Judy, anything else with assessments or data that would be helpful to share? This has been great. I know people are wondering about that, but just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything else that you had.
I just want to say just one quick thing. It takes a village, and our superintendent, each time we benchmark, has a 3-hour private session where my department goes through all of the data with him so that he can process it, and then he can provide feedback and support to our administrators, and also share the information with our school committee and our families. So the data is really an important piece from the district improvement plan, from the superintendent level right down to the classroom teacher.
Yeah. You all have mentioned obviously using FastBridge as an assessment. You've mentioned you've created your essential components playbook. I hope I got that title right. You've mentioned a couple of books that you read for book study. Are there any other materials or programs that your teachers are using to plan for WinBlock or plan for instruction, or any other resources that you have found to be particularly useful or helpful that would be good to share? Is there anything else that you all would recommend
I'm
all.
just going to jump in and say, I don't think we mentioned where we had our initial professional development from, and that was from the Reading League. And
Mm.
that they really, the programming and the planning and the support and the coaching and the guidance they gave us was absolutely phenomenal. And I
Yeah.
don't think we mentioned that at all.
Yeah, thank you.
Vicky had mentioned this earlier, Jake, and I'm not sure if, I don't think you had it on the list that you said, but the diagnostic assessments that we use in addition to the FastBridge or reading fluency screenings is the QPS, which is a quick phonics screener, and the PAST, which is a phoneme awareness screener as well. Those are very easy, quick tools that really give you a lot of really actionable data to be able to really, you know, intervene with students. So those are the two assessments that really we use a lot.
Great, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, from the Reading League, we also we did receive a 6-step lesson plan, which has really helped to be able to plan targeted lessons for our students. And it really takes you right through each component of our literacy block. But as far it, you know, starts at the phoneme level and it progresses through seeing words in text and reading real text. So I think that it has been something that we've used in our intervention blocks, especially. That has been really powerful.
Great, thank you. Last question, I think, and then we'll do some Q&A from folks. But biggest challenges or barriers that you've faced along the way, looking back, like what would be helpful to share with people, you know, that you've encountered along this journey.
I think mine from a district level is that we've had a lot of teacher turnover in the district, and that we have a lot of teachers on waivers and emergency licenses. So it takes 3 years for something to really have a full impact on a district. And it's in some ways every year has been like Groundhog Day for us. We have to, you know, take a bunch of people, and while we're moving one cohort forward, we're actually starting another cohort, you know, at the first steps of their journey. And we have our terrific coaches who provide science of reading boot camps and catch up for that. But it's really difficult to have it all reflected in the data because we constantly have you know, changing teachers. So we try and take a look at the teachers who have been doing this for 3 years and seeing what level of impact they're making. But that's the tricky piece for me, I think.
Great. Gwynn or Vicky, anything at the school level that comes to mind?
So a challenge that kind of we've seen, at the school level is just taking all of this knowledge that we have and aligning it with our current programs that we already have in place. You know, there are different scope and sequences that literacy programs kind of follow to teach children how to read. And so now when you're layering in kind of different practices and with something that's already in place and just aligning it, that takes a lot of time to do that. But also just making it so that instruction is seamless and kind of flows naturally, has just taken some time. And I think over the next couple of years, you know, we'll get there, but that has definitely been a challenge that I've seen kind of at the school level.
Great. Vic, anything else to add there?
I think it's just important to remember that this takes time. And like Judy said, it truly does take a village. It's not a change that you see necessarily happen overnight. So reading is something that we continue to work towards, and you know, the research is constantly evolving. And so just continuing to keep up with our practices and provide support to teachers, but just taking it one day at a time and making sure that we are using everything that we have in front of us to, you know, continue to move our students forward.
Yeah. I think somewhat along those lines, Vicky, that you just mentioned, like I would anything that you wished you knew starting this work, you know, that you know now. Is there any additional advice that you would give to schools or districts or networks that are doing this that you know, you wish you knew again 3 or 4 years ago when you started this?
For me, it would be our core reading program. We had a very antiquated program, and we spent a long time piloting and researching programs. And right before we had our new knowledge, I should say, we adopted a reading program that we knew was weak in the phonics area, but had super beautiful, diverse literature. And in hindsight, that's caused some complications for the teachers because as we know more about what we need to do, the scope and sequence of things are shifting, and so their core resource gets a little bit. They have to work a little harder on their core resource. So had I known, I think we would have taken a look at different programs.
Right. Vicky or Gwen, anything else that you wish you knew when you started this work that you know now?
No, I agree with Judy. I think, programming has been the biggest barrier. Right now, we're juggling a few different programs, and so it takes a little bit more work and effort. And so, as we look into the next cycle, obviously, we'll just be more mindful about really putting those foundational skills first when we adopt a program.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that just the time that it takes to kind of become an expert, but then, to continue to learn and kind of build on that, and just really kind of take the time to meld it all together.
Great. I'll ask a question just about kind of moving forward, and then folks that are participating, if you have any questions that have not been answered, you can put them in the Q&A. But would love to just hear a little bit like what's next, like where are you all headed, next year, the following year, like how are you building on this? Would just love to kind of hear where you're currently thinking, version whatever 2 or 3 with science of reading in Pittsfield.
I think for us, it's to really, if we were to wave our magic wand, it would be to be able to keep our literacy coaches to help continue this work beyond the funding that we have. But it's just to continue to grow our educators so that we're really meeting the needs of all of our students. So even fine tune it more if we have a growing multilingual learner population. So maybe, start to dig deeper and increase our skills in supporting our, students that are some special populations.
Right. Gwynn, Vicky, anything else just at the school level, things that you want to continue to work on, or the next hurdle you're trying to clear?
I would say just to continue to refine, our practice, because this is, 3 or 4 years in, we have a lot of knowledge that now everyone has, but kind of just continuing to get better at that. And, we have really, challenging students that are coming to us. And so really getting the kids from K through 2 learning how to read so that then kids in the upper grades 3 through 5 can really focus more on the comprehension. And I feel like the science of reading is the tool to help us do that so that we can get to a point where we're really intervening and targeting and have a really strong tier 1 so that then when students are in their upper elementary grades, we're able to focus more on the grade level standards and the really core materials.
Right. There are a couple of questions here. I think, Judy, you mentioned students that use special population, students who have IEP, students who are English language learners, et cetera. And I think that maybe struck a chord with a couple folks. And so would love to just hear both at the district level and then at the school level, any additional structures, supports that are in place. So one for the adults, like, right, how are you bringing your staff, your support staff members into these conversations, your data meetings, et cetera, PD, et cetera. But then also anything else that you're doing to support the students that need additional support, whether they have an IEP, a 504, they're an English language learner, et cetera. Judy, maybe start with you at the district level. Is there anything that you all are thinking about in terms of special populations at the district level? And then would love to hear Vicky and Gwen.
Yeah, I would say that our district, on the district level, our teachers who are teaching these special populations, well, it's all classroom teachers, but our special teachers, they've actually had some additional training in the science of reading. So they came to the same courses that everyone else had, but then we also had separate sessions with our teachers of our multilingual learners, our special education teachers. We've done a little bit of extra work with our interventionists. But we have a position called an instruction and accountability coordinator, which is kind of like a special education team leader. We also did some training with them. They normally would not have curriculum training, but we wanted to make sure that as they're supporting students in writing IEPs, that they had an understanding of the process and what the students would need. So I think that's kind of where we are on the district level, with more of that to come.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Vicki, Gwynn, at the school level, similar question, students who need additional support, both how are you supporting adults, and then how are you, and what's that impact on students?
I'll kind of just, I've said this a lot of times already, but just talking about the fact that we all have such a common language now and a common knowledge base. So we work really closely at my school with the multilingual learner teacher. And so she has had all of the exact same instruction that we have. And so we collaborate a lot. Reading specialist, classroom teacher, and multilingual learner teacher to be able to make sure that we're really meeting each child's needs. So collaboration that we're able to have now with this common knowledge base in the science of reading, kind of best practices, has just really made a huge impact. So I feel like that has just been really important.
Okay. Vicki, anything else on your end?
I think it's just the time too. We really make sure that we include our special education teacher and our interventionist in our data meetings. And then also teachers and our special education teacher and our reading interventionist, they have bi-weekly meetings set up to go over just the data that's being collected, and the special education teacher and the classroom teacher, they share what they're seeing in their classroom versus what they're seeing in their small group to really align what they're doing. So I think that it's been really powerful to allow that time and space for everybody to talk about what they're seeing with their students.
Great. A couple folks have really latched onto this idea you've shared, like it takes a village, and so would love to hear about how, or like, what have you communicated to families and caregivers? What data do you share with them? What information have you shared with them about this transition over the last couple of years? Things that they can be doing at home, et cetera. Like, how have you brought family and family members and caregivers along in this journey with you all?
On a district level, I would say that there's a lot, there's information that comes from our Title I newsletters and from our superintendent as to kind of what's happening in schools. And we try and showcase some of the things that are happening. He also tries to share that at his report at the school committee meetings. We've also shared data. We have a parent advisory curriculum council, and we share benchmark data with them all the time. And as a matter of fact, they urge the superintendent to please share this data with a greater group. So this year, he has not only shared the data with the school committee, but he's actually held Zoom meetings during benchmarking time for parents to jump on and hear about the data. And this year, we also created a data one-pager, so that after this last benchmark, each family could have a one-pager as to how their child was doing compared to other students in the school. Just general no names, similar to the MCAS data report, or that's our state assessment report that families receive, so that families could actually look at that one-pager and have information on that. That's on the district level, but I know there's lots more on the school level that they do.
Yeah, great, thank you. Gwynn, Vicki, anything on the school level?
Yeah, additionally, we do send home benchmark letters that were provided by the district to our families, but we also send home the FastBridge family reports, which are built right into our FastBridge system. And it really lays out where the student is in comparison to their typical peers. And so that's helpful for families. We also have, in my building, I know in many other buildings across our district, we use our FastBridge to set personal goals for our students. And that's really powerful for our students that are well below grade level. We let the families know where the student should be at the end of the grade, but also what is typical progress for that student. And so we have our students also track their progress. They graph in every grade level, K through 5. They really track where they are in relation to their own personal goal. And we communicate that with families as well. So the students are excited. I communicate that in my newsletters to families. So it really is a partnership, and getting everyone excited for student growth is really important.
Great. Gwynn, anything else that you'd like
I would just say something I know that our school has done is worked with families to kind of communicate to them what the WIN blocks are, those designated blocks that we have for student intervention, and just kind of getting them to understand that, every student receives Win. Every student is getting what they need within that block, and kind of what then it looks like for their individual child, and what kind of intervention or instruction that they're receiving during those times.
Yeah, great. And we had at least one person, I think, ask about Win Block a little bit. Is there a specific program or resource that you all are using in Win Block, or is it just more of the, the resources, et cetera, that the Reading League, is that right? Reading League, and you all have created, or is there just, can you talk a little bit more about Win Block maybe as our last question before we close out?
Yeah, so this is something too that we could definitely do, like a post Reading League, post Science of Reading, or pre and post. But now the majority really of our Win Blocks are kind of piggybacking on what's being done in Tier 1, and then using Science of Reading instructional practices that we've kind of honed and learned, and with 6-step lesson plans being one of the main forms of kind of intervention that's used within those blocks for reading intervention. So yeah.
Awesome. Vicki, Judy, anything else to add that would be helpful for Win Block?
I think just is, I don't know if people have questions about what resources we might use when planning a 6-step lesson plan. And I know Gwen had mentioned the Kilpatrick book that we've used, and we do use the Kilpatrick 1-minute drills as our warm-up piece for that step 1 of that lesson plan. And then also the Road to Reading book was shared with us through the Reading League, and that really takes you through the entire 6-step lesson plan. And so that's been a really valuable resource for teachers.
Great. Thank you. Judy, anything else?
No, I just think that it's not easy to schedule in the Win Block, because you have to really look at what every student needs, and have a master schedule so that it's all hands on deck. So when we do it, we have the classroom teachers working with students, our multilingual learner teachers, we have our special education teachers, all our interventionists, everyone during that Win Block is working with students, so students can really get individualized attention.
Great. Thank you all so much. This has been wonderful, wonderfully informative. Appreciate your time. Wanted to share with folks, we're going to have a second version of our Science of Reading webinar next week on Tuesday, March 12th at 1 o'clock Eastern. Judy's going to be joining us, and then Deb Rollison, who's the principal of Reed Middle School, and Dr. Matthew Bishop, principal of Taconic High School. So they'll be able to share what Science of Reading looks like at middle and high schools. And so would love, hopefully you all can join us again next week. And if you have other colleagues that are in middle and high schools, please share that information with them. We'd love to have them participate and join with us as well. Thank you all so much. If anybody has additional questions that were not answered, or want to learn more about the work that Pittsfield's doing in science reading, or have questions about SchoolWorks, please do not hesitate to reach out. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks so much. And folks, and Judy, Gwen, Vicki, thank you so much. I know it's a big ask to be out of your regular day jobs for an hour today. So just thank you so much for joining us and sharing. It was wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.